how to start a business from scratch without putting any money down. This is something that I have done multiple times. And for context, I've been running a software company for the better part of about 3 years now. And that has brought me a very, very good quality of life. But even before that, one of the first businesses that I started was when I was 13, and I didn't even have a credit card. So spending any money was not an option. I wanted to talk about it because I know that a lot of people want to give it a try, but don't know how to start. And so I wanted to kind of lay the foundation from the most basic level. The first place that I wanted to start is like the first thing that a business does is it just solves a problem for somebody. And so the first business that I started when I was 13 was it was delivering Subway sandwiches to friends at school. That was it. Basically, I had a friend group at school. They were boarding students, so they didn't leave the school. I did. I went home every day. And there was a Subway store. I'm talking like the Subway chain, like the regular sandwich store. And I bought sandwiches from there. I would take their orders in school. I'd write it on a little piece of paper. I'd bring it back home. I'd order those sandwiches and I'd bring it to school the next day for those kids who couldn't leave school. And that's what I did for a long time. And then I started working on my first website. That's like, at this point, I was already a little bit into tech and I started working on that. And I didn't know how to design a website. I didn't know how to make a backend. So like basically all the server side and like processing database, I knew how to do none of that. And so I used Google Sheets and Google Forms, and I made a front-end website using HTML and CSS. So that was my first ever like little proper coding project that I released to the world. That was the first time that I used any money to put into that was to pay for the domain, which was like $10 a year. And I had made some of that money already through the reselling of the Subway sandwiches. So I was making money on reselling those. It wasn't much, but basically I solved a need, which was people at my school wanted food that they could not get. And so I solved that problem. That was the first ever time I actually got people to give me money to do something. And it was profitable. It was a profitable operation because from day one, I started with basically enough to buy one sandwich from like little savings that I had as a kid, right? And I used that. And then when I went to school, I asked people to pay me and I obviously charged them margin. And because I was the only person doing this, I had a monopoly on the market and I could charge a pretty healthy margin because these guys wanted it pretty bad. And so that's how I made things work the first time. That was a little fun kind of project, but it wasn't something that brought me income that I can basically run my life on, which is what I do now, right? And now I have a team. I actually recently rented a place in London, even though I know I'm in Lisbon right now. So how did I do that? This business, I actually also started with no money down. The only thing that I did start with was with a laptop. And if you don't have that, you can still start by basically like finding some kind of problem that you have access to. And the biggest way you can find that is think about distribution. Think about the people that you know. Don't worry about what you're good at, what you can't do, what makes more money, less money. That doesn't matter. What matters is who do you have access to right now, because that is the way that you grow fastest. Who are in your circles and what problems do they have? That's the biggest thing that most people struggle with is like client generation from the start. And start there and find a problem that they have and look to solve that problem. And I would say that one of the biggest kind of equalizers is if you are able to watch this video, that means you have some kind of internet connection. If that is the case, then immediately you're on a different playing field. When I was 17, I decided to start an agency, which is basically a service-based business. So clients contract me to render a service. In my case, it's software development. And once that project is completed, they pay me. You need zero money to start doing that. So most service-based businesses do not need any money, and that's what makes them a really great business model to start. But you can do the same thing with most other business models. You just need distribution first. So there's a fashion company called the Nude Project. They're founded by these pretty young guys who I think are 23 and 24 right now. And they've built it into like a phenomenon of kind of like Gen Z pop culture, whatever. They've done it really well. But they started with 600 euros and they had two co-founders. So each put in 300 euros. They were both college students and 300 euros was a lot of money for them at the time. And so they did put some money into it, but they didn't put that much. They made a little bit of profit, then they reinvested everything. They sold out again and reinvested. You just have to find a way to get the first little bit of money, because once you have the first bit, you can then reinvest. Services are easier because you can sell your time. You can sell your time for any kind of service. If you have an internet connection, you already can do stuff with people. There's a guy who wrote a book on a Nokia phone, on a flip phone, on the little, like the keypads. He wrote an entire book. I swear it exists, like it's somewhere online. But if that guy can write a book and you can watch this video, then for sure, you can set up a business without any money. Fundamentally, you have to drop that assumption that you need capital to get things off the ground. That is one of the biggest advancements that the internet has created for us. And that is fundamentally really, really exciting. Once you have a problem that you are solving, you just double down on that and continue to solve that singular problem. You can just grow that into like a really, really big business. You'd be surprised. Like look at Gymshark. Gymshark, I find one of the most fascinating case studies. In 10 years, they've grown to do about $500 million in revenue, more than that actually. And they have, a multi-billion-dollar valuation. The Gymshark founder became one of the youngest self-made billionaires. They just sell clothes to gym people, to weightlifting, specifically weightlifting athletes. They started and they got to hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, only serving that weightlifting profile. And the guy, Ben Francis, he's the founder, he worked at Pizza Hut. So he worked at Pizza Hut to make money for the first iterations of Gymshark. He bought a sewing machine and he bought some stand at some fair. Then he did influencer marketing. So he played the influencer marketing playbook really well. And that's what blew up the business, right? The way that you manage to actually succeed in a business with no money down is looking at your distribution, because that is what determines how fast your business can grow. It is a distribution game. That's the growth game. I do also want to make sure though, you cannot neglect the other side of that, which is the fulfillment game, is the longevity and the backbone of your business. That is the foundation, that is the spine, that is what keeps your business alive. If your fulfillment and your service is bad, you will fail, because basically word of mouth will start to get around that you're just bad at what you do, and people will stop going to you. When they see your advertisements, they will ignore them. It's about building reputation. But first and foremost, like if you want to start a business with no money, do something that you can do online, because most of the time that stuff is free. The amount of stuff that you can do online for free is ridiculous. You can design online in Figma for free. You can edit online videos in like CapCut for free. You can program certainly for free. Like I learned programming completely by myself, entirely for free, off of YouTube and like Code Academy free courses. That's how I learned it. I've been programming since I was like 12, 13. I just kept making stuff. It's not about buying better courses. You don't need a course to teach you a skill if you really want to learn it, because of the amount of stuff that's available on the internet for free. Use that. Use the fact that the internet's got a ridiculous amount of resources. You can learn anything from quantum physics to molecular engineering to astrophysics to neuroscience to just about anything. I say this because I'm an immensely curious kid, and I studied all these things. When I was 14, I spent the summer studying like college level chemistry because I could. Because why not? Because Crash Course exists on YouTube, and I just binged their entire course and took a bunch of notes and made a huge document because I could, like for no reason. The internet has so much information, and it is up to you to go and source it if you want to build a business. That is, I think, my biggest 2 cents on this. If you actually genuinely want to build a business without any money down, go learn a skill, sell that skill, solve somebody's problem. So just ask to solve somebody's problem first. That was a little bit of a rant, but I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I would really, really focus on to solve. I would start by trying to look at what I can do for free. If I can put no money into anything, if I have no credit card, no nothing, no access to anything, I think, what can I start by doing for free for people? What problem can I solve that requires no money from me? So for example, what services can I do specifically for people? And I would start by asking to do it for people for free, because that then gives me testimonials. Hey, I'll build you your website for free. Just give me a review and maybe tell somebody about it. That's how I would start. If I had to start this agency from completely zero and I didn't have my name or connections or anything, I would just go back to square one and I would find somebody where I can do a little bit of work for free and then get like their review and get some experience. And then I do another one and maybe I do it for really cheap, or I do it again for free, whatever. But if you build enough projects, even if they're for free, eventually somebody's going to want to start paying you if you do good work, but you have to do good work. Yeah, that's really it. Like, you'd be surprised how many people are really starting businesses from complete zero today. And if you want to try it, go for it. Yeah. I will just end this video with a little caveat that just understand that a business is an undertaking of months and years, not weeks and days. It is not a summer project. It is not something that you do over the course of like a little summer holiday thing and then you kind of like get a little side income, whatever. No, most likely if you don't put your full focus into it, it will not go anywhere. It might bring you a little bit of money for a little while, but it's not going to bring you anything substantial for a very long time. Building a business takes a lot of focus, and it will stress you out sometimes. You will start by effectively being a freelancer. And if you want to build it into more than that, you need to hire people. If you need to hire people, you need to think about salaries. If you need to think about salaries, that will create certain stress. That will create a certain burden on your shoulders that you will have to carry. But you just at all times, remember, you were the one who chose that road. And I go back to this saying in Portuguese, quem corre não cansa. Quem corre não cansa means he who runs for fun doesn't get tired. And that is something I go back to whenever I'm stressed, which is I'm the one who chose to put this burden on myself. This is of my choosing. Nobody else's. Nobody else forced me into this. And it is not necessarily for everybody. There are a lot of ways where you can take a lot of ownership over things and make a lot of money, and you don't need to run your own business. Actually, on a risk-adjusted basis, I think this is a thing by Scott Galloway, which is a business professor. Scott Galloway said, on a risk-adjusted basis, if you're maximizing for wealth, optimizing for wealth, you should join an early stage but very promising company, because you get a lot of the growth upside, but you don't get the massive risk in the first year, 2 years, 3 years. That is when you have the biggest and hardest time of the business. From there on out, like, yes, the levels get harder, but you have more resources to play with, and you have more levers and buttons that you can push around. The first 1-2 years are really just like the founders figuring it out. And I say that from experience, from very, very much firsthand experience. It is a lot to figure out, and sometimes you will feel lost. And I can attest to having felt that many times. And I've spoken on this in other videos as well, but like, sometimes there's nowhere else to look. There's nobody else to ask. It is just you, and that sucks. So that's my 2 cents on how to build a business from scratch for free. You can do it. Just make sure that you know what you're signing up for, and then focus on what you have distribution to. Whose problem can you solve? You can only solve people's problems if you know those people. So start with who you know, where you have distribution, where do you have access, where can you easily get into, and then focus on those kinds of people and what problems can you solve for them, preferably doing it yourself for free at first so you can get a little bit of money, which you can then reinvest and grow from there. That's my 2 cents on how to build a business from scratch entirely for free. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know in comments, because I read those. I try to find a lot of video idea inspiration from those comments. So let me know if you have any other questions or anything else that you'd like to know. Also, a little bonus for those of you who stayed to the end, but if you really want to make stuff happen, be resourceful. This is what I was recording on. My recording setup, it was literally me sitting in this little chair and that little phone stand on an old Greek yogurt box, which was just lying around. Like, literally, I pulled out my phone stand and I wanted to record something, and I grabbed this little yogurt container that was over there, and I stuck it and I just used it as a recording setup. Like, I want to highlight that because, like, if you want to build something, you figure it out based on the resources that you have around you. I think I've recorded other instances where I literally recorded on top of, like, I had it on a Red Bull can or something, like, and a couple of books, whatever. You just look at your environment, see what you have, use it. But yeah, that's a little bonus if you stuck around to the end.